In this video, we're going to talk about how you can audit change data with Replication. Let's start by talking about what it means to audit change data. The concept is simple. For every change to a row, you have a row in an audit table. That row in the audit table tells you the type of change made, whether it's an insert, update, or delete, the data for that type of change, as well as information about the transaction that contained the change and the user or application that made the change. And naturally, because the data is included, you would have one audit table for each source table being audited. In Replication, all of this information is captured from the database log. The information is then saved in a special type of target table called a CCD, or Consistent Change Data Table. And of course, there's one CCD for each source table. Now, Capture doesn't populate the CCD directly. Instead, it passes the data to an applied program, just as it would for any other type of target table. Apply then populates the table with your audit data. Now we're going to flip over to the Replication dashboard to look at a real CCD. We'll see exactly what information exists in a CCD that doesn't exist in any other type of table. The first thing we see is that the CCD, or the target table here, has the same columns as the source table. Now let's make our target window just a little bit larger and scroll past the columns from the source table and look at the ones that are unique to a CCD. The first thing we see is a column that tells us whether the change was an insert, update, or delete. And as we can see in this particular CCD at this point in time, we have all updates recorded. The next three columns give us information about the transaction. One, UOWID, uniquely identifies the transaction. Another, CommitSeek, identifies the order of the transaction when compared to other transactions. And the third, IntentSeek, tells us the order of the change within the transaction. The next three columns tell us about the user and application that changed the data. And the last column is a timestamp that tells us when this change was written to the database log. And this column can be very useful to extend the use of a CCD beyond just auditing, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. With its audit data, a CCD can provide double duty as both an audit trail of changes and an input to ETL tools. For example, an ETL tool could choose to only extract the most recent data, or to exclude deletes, or to process each type of operation in a different way. And since the extract is done through SQL, you have the full power of SQL to transform and filter the data as you extract it. In addition to whatever else it does, the ETL tool can also delete data from the CCD when it's no longer needed. This is especially useful since the Replication programs do not delete data from CCD tables. Now let's look at some options you have with CCDs. The first tells Replication how much history you want. You can choose to record every change that happens as a row in the CCD. This is called a non-condensed CCD. Or you can choose to have only the most recent change for each row on the source, and this is called a condensed CCD. The other major option is whether you want Replication to initialize the CCD with a full copy of source data. If you choose this option, the CCD is referred to as complete. If you do not choose to do this, the CCD is referred to as non-complete. And that wraps up our overview of auditing change data with CCDs.